Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and today we're going to compare two, well, kind of similar yet very different Windows 8 convertible tablets. We have the Sony VAIO Duo 11 over here, slider design, 11.6-inch HD, full HD display, and we have the Asus Taichi 21, which has two full HD displays. 11.6 inches, also similarly priced. Asus Taichi is a little bit more, but which one's for you? We're going to look at them now. Alright, so we've got two fairly high-end Windows 8 convertible tablets here. That means they can work both as computers and as tablets. They cost about the same. The Asus Taichi is about $100 more, either the Core i5 or Core i7 configurations. Both of these are available with the Core i5 and a Core i7. And for each one, if you go with the Core i5, it's going to be the usual 1.7 GHz ULV CPU that you find on Ultrabooks and 128 gig SSD. With the Sony, you get 6 gigs of RAM in that configuration. While with the Taichi, you get 4 gigs, regardless of whether you go with the Core i5 or Core i7 model. The Core i5 on this guy is the same. It's 1.7 gigahertz, the same 1.7 gigahertz ULV CPU, and it has a 128 gig SSD. Both of these, if you go up to the i7, you get a 256 gig SSD. In both cases, it's a fast SSD drive, so you're going to get very good performance out of that. So Sony gives you a little bit more RAM for your money. That's an important thing because these guys are not easy to take apart and upgrade. In fact, RAM is soldered on the motherboard for the Asus, so there goes that concept altogether there. Sony is $11.99 for the Core i5 version, $14.99 for the Core i7. Taichi is $12.99 for the i5 and $15.99 for the i7 version. So when you're talking that much money in either case, $100 shouldn't be a deal breaker. It should be the one that works best for you. Both of these tablets weigh about 2 3/4 pounds. The Sony is 1 ounce heavier. Trust me, you're not going to feel 1 ounce when you're talking about 2 3/4 pounds. They both have backlit keyboards. Different designs here. And Sony is a slider design. Really, this is a good design for those of you who know you're going to be using your keyboard a lot and you don't want one of those detachable transformer kind of deals because, well, you need that keyboard here. So it's as simple as just bring it down like that, and then you grab the edge and you flick it up if you want to raise it again. Pretty stiff there, locking mechanism. Only position right here, this angle. But it's an IPS display, wide viewing angles, and it's a pretty good position. I generally haven't found it to be annoying. It's a glossy display, so is this on the outside. Gorilla Glass clad in both cases, which is good because obviously when you're carrying them, the glass is going to be facing up. You can think of it as something like the HP Envy Spectre 14-inch model with the glass lid on it, or the Acer S7 13-inch that has a glass lid. So you've got glass right there if you're carrying it. That's what it is. You're going to probably want a case to protect it just in case, even if it is Gorilla Glass. Same goes with this guy. Taichi, it's an interesting concept. There it is. It looks like a normal laptop, doesn't it? But when this goes off, it looks like it's a black glass lid. So in either case, you have some vulnerability. You can see in terms of size, these guys are just about identical. The Sony is a hair thicker. In terms of weight, in terms of size, you're looking at the same thing in terms of having exposed glass surface on the top. Where they start to differ is, the big one for the Taichi, is that it opens up and turns into a standard laptop style computer. So here we have, now looks like black glass lid. Turn it around and, well, look at that. There's a second display. That's what your $100 is going toward, a second full HD 1080p display. This display is matte, so that's really going to be great for you guys who work on images a lot, although I don't know how many serious Photoshop jockeys are going to want to work on an 11.6-inch display, but for those of you who do, helps. And even if you're working on office documents in a bright light situation where there's a lot of glare, really nice to have the matte display. Asus, they're known for their backlight bleed issues. Not so bad. On the back, I really can't see any blacklight bleed. On the inside one, a little bit down at the bottom, but pretty much like you'd see on any other laptop computer. The Sony, the lid here, your one and only display, teeny bit of backlight bleed along the bottom and one side edge, but very, very minimal. So very good in that respect. But the Asus, you can see, what do you get here? You get an absolutely normal keyboard and a large trackpad as well. And it actually works well. Again, for Asus, that's an achievement, because they used to have some terrible trackpads, but this works very well with Windows gestures. And that's an important thing, because this is not a touchscreen now. This is going to get to the point about how you like to work. Here, you can touch the screen. Once you get used to Windows 8, you discover it's surely much easier to actually navigate around the device when you can touch it. With the Asus, when you've got it in laptop mode, you can try to touch that screen, but nothing's going to happen except you're going to get some fingerprints on the nice matte display that you have to wipe off. You're going to have to rely on the multi-touch gestures on this trackpad to do everything. Only touch on the back side. So, does that sound like something that's going to derange you? Keep that in mind. Does that matter to you? Well, if you're one of those people who just wants to use this in standard desktop mode, and you're going to tap over here, be in desktop mode where you're already not accustomed to touching the screen because you like to work that old-fashioned way, well, that's just fine. If you do spend a lot of time in live tile land, though, trust me, it will derange you a bit that you can't touch this internal display. Obviously, they're both 11.6-inch keyboards, but this one gives you a much more normal typing experience. In part, that's because, see, you have this big wrist rest here, and you have this nice, large, easy-to-use trackpad. Here, there is no wrist rest area. That's the price you pay for having the slider kind of design. But you do get a little optical nav here. It looks almost like one of those Lenovo eraser stick pointers here, but it's not. It's actually an optical nav, and you've got your clicker buttons down here on the bottom, right there. The optical nav, it's pretty annoying, I would say, for the most part. I have set it to slow it down. It works much better that way. And you can set it to not react to taps, so tap won't click. Because otherwise, when you're moving around on the keyboard here, you're going to tap that by accident. You're going to be moving your cursor around. So if having a normal typing experience and a normal trackpad is important to you, you spend a lot of time typing, for example, I would say that the Asus Taichi is going to be your better pick. Now, with the Duo 11 keyboard, you do get used to it. Unless you have fat fingers, big hands, you may never actually acclimate to this tool, but you can get good at this once you get some practice with it. But still, overall, Taichi is the winner on the keyboard. Now, the next thing is port selection. If you take a look on the side, we'll close up the Sony and take a look at it first. Power ports right on the back here. You can see where we've got it plugged in. On this side here, we have a VGA port built in, full-size SD and memory stick card slot right here, your 3.5mm combo audio jack. And you can see there's just a little bit of taper there, more for good looks and to give you a little wedgy place to grip onto. And on this side we have two USB 3.0 ports, a full-size HDMI port, and there's your power button. And on the back here, that's our power plug. And well, wait, there's more. Here's your Ethernet, RJ45, a little drop-down door right there, so you don't have to use any kind of dongle adapters. So that's very well equipped, especially for an 11.6-inch device. You've got a lot of full-size ports, card reader on here. Sony's always very good at that miniaturization in their engineering. Now let's take a look at the Asus. Right here we have our combo 3.5mm audio jack. We have one USB 3.0 port. We have our mini VGA port. Now, Asus includes a dongle adapter to full-size VGA, so you're going to have to carry that around with you. So your volume controls over here. This is your lock slider, so you can set it to be working only in laptop mode, so it won't turn on the outer display, or you can have it automatically switch displays on you when you open and close it. This side, that's our power slider. And we have micro HDMI rather, another USB 3.0 port, and that's our charging jack. So with the Asus, you're going to have to carry dongle adapters if you need VGA and Ethernet. If you don't need those, not so much of a deal. But Sony gives you all those things full size built in and gives you a card slot. As you'll notice, this 11.6-inch Asus Taichi 21 model does not have a card slot. The 13-inch Taichi 31 does. Volume controls on this are pretty easy to use. Obviously, it's just kind of a normal volume rocker and positioned on the side. That's important because when you're using it in tablet mode, you're going to want to be able to access that. Sony, a little bit more challenging there. Your controls are underneath this back, would be the bottom edge holding it landscape mode, right here on the back side. No matter how long you use this thing, I found you're just never really going to find these very easily. There's not much tactile feel to them, but that's where they are. These are your little volume buttons right here. VAIO assist button can boot you into BIOS at boot time and take you into recovery, driver update, and other stuff. That's what that button's for. And this is our rotation lock button. So yeah, not exactly the best for external controls. Both have stereo speakers, both have about equal volume, and they're louder than you would expect for an 11.6-inch device. On the Sony, they're right here. Since this edge cants up a little bit, they're not totally muffled by the desk, and they're kind of aiming at you, whether you're using it in slider position. If you're using it in slider position, they're going to be aiming down and back just a little bit. if you're using it in tablet mode, right there. On the Asus, our speakers are right here firing out from these little slits on the side. That's a speaker slit right there, and there's another one on the other side right there. Again, about equally as loud. And now if you're using this in tablet mode and you're holding it like this, it's actually, the volume improves versus having it down on the desk. Firing back into the room or out to the sides really, so it works pretty well. But again, in either case, you're getting about the same level of bass, which is, say, not much because it's an 11.6-inch device, and the same volume. And it is loud enough to fill a room. Now when it comes to display brightness, the Sony is the winner. 400 nits of brightness versus 250 to 280, depending on whether you're talking about the inner or outer display on the Taichi. That's certainly adequate, that 250 nits of brightness for indoor use, but when it comes to things like working in a bright environment, say a brightly lit office where you might want to combat some of the high ambient light, you might start to miss it. Mostly it's going to be outdoors, so if you plan on using these guys outdoors, keep that in mind. The Sony is brighter. But the Sony has a glossy display and only a single glossy display, so you're going to get a lot of glare there. Gorilla Glass displays do tend to glare a lot. So that's going to be an issue with the Sony and its single display and with the outer display on the Taichi. Taichi outer display, really hard to see outdoors. Both of these guys have identical active digitizers, N-Trig DuoSense 2's the latest generation, 1024 levels of pressure sensitivity, and they both come with fairly identical pins. And I'll show you both of those. Here's the Asus pen right here. And we have two buttons right there. Generally speaking, the one's programmed to do select and the other one is programmed to do erase because we have a metal butt here. N-Trig says that they queried users and they found that they didn't want the eraser on the end so much, which I find hard to believe because I think that's pretty useful. Unscrew this little cap right over here and you've got one quadruple A battery inside. They say it's good for about 6 months. We're still testing it to see, so that's where it goes right in there. Nice size metal pen, good weight, good quality stuff. And if we look at the Sony, it's identical except that they added a little cap and a little lanyard holder. So we've got this little thing on the end here to tie your pen up if you want to, though, to God knows what. And they have a cap. Take it off and you've got the same thing. They just played with the colors a little bit. Same size, same feel, same two buttons. Pretty much the same experience when drawing. I've tested this with Corel Painter 12 and also with Art Rage Pro on both of these. Art Rage Pro is bundled with the Sony, by the way, which is a nice touch because that costs $70 otherwise. But other than a very slight difference in the way lines are represented, I would say on the Asus you actually get a little bit more of a natural media representation, a little bit more grain, say if you're working with colored pencils or pastel, and you get more distinct lines on the Sony. But these are very subtle differences. You graphic artists will notice the difference, and it's really more a matter of preference as to which you like better. But overall, the inking experience is similar. They're both very good for note-taking if you just want to use something like OneNote 2013 or even OneNote 2010 with these. And the machines do know that this is a dual digitizer, a touch plus the digital pen, so you'll automatically see if you bring the pen to the screen, the pen functions appear in programs like Word 2013, so very cool. Equal footing, again, here for that feature. How about battery life? They're both equally unimpressive when it comes to battery life. This has been a problem with Windows 8 convertibles so far. They just don't have really great battery life. Core i5, Core i7, they're kind of power hungry, and we're talking about relatively small devices here, 11.6 inches, even though the 13-inch models, there's just not that much room for a battery because they're trying to make them so darn thin and light these days. In practice, both of these last about 4 to 4.5 hours on a charge. We are not talking Energizer bunnies here. If you have a requirement to be using a tablet for an extended period of time, well, that's going to be a little bit disappointing. But as long as you can get to an outlet, there it is. About equal footing. But here's the thing with the Sony. You know Sony, they love to make those sheet batteries. Clips onto the bottom of the device. There's little lock holes here and a little connecting port. And you can buy a $149 sheet battery, clips on the bottom. Adds about a pound to the weight, a little bit less, so you're carrying something around heavier, but it can almost increase runtimes by about 60 to 80%. So that is an option with the Sony. That is not an option with the Taichi. When it comes to cameras, the Sony has a 1.3 megapixel webcam up here. Taichi has two. You have your 1.3 megapixel up front, and then there's a 5 megapixel camera on above the rear display. So higher quality, certainly yes, but honestly, the driver is not particularly impressive on that. Asus does not load a custom camera application. That's usually what it takes, because the basic Windows camera app is not super capable when it comes to imaging. So in theory, if things improve in terms of software, you'll get better pictures from the rear camera on the Asus. That's most likely the one you'll probably be using for video chat on Skype too, assuming you want to use it in tablet mode, so you can go for a higher res image there. In terms of performance, you're looking at the same DDR3 1600 MHz RAM on these guys, and the same Core i5 and Core i7 options, and both have very fast and capable SSD drives, so they're pretty similar. Sony does better than the convertible average with their Core i5, I have to say, and it scores 4750 on PC Mark 7, and our Core i7 Asus Taichi scored 4950, so there's a small difference there, and that's about what you expect to see between a Core i5 and Core i7. Really, the performance jump isn't so much there. So you're looking at pretty much the same stuff. Both have Intel HD 4000 integrated graphics, certainly capable enough to play 1080p streaming video, locally stored 1080p video, and some certainly casual gaming, and all the Windows Store games play just fine on these. And you can do some light, casual, certainly casual, and better than casual games for those more tolerant games that don't have high requirements. No. The latest Call of Duty, no, you're not going to be playing that on Ultrabooks in general, but if you want to play something World of Warcraft, it's a go on both of these. Again, identical performance. Both of them are relatively quiet. The Lenovo and the Dell Ultrabooks tend to be the noisiest. Same is true of the convertibles in terms of how much you're going to hear that fan. Both of these relatively quiet. The Sony, actually, you'll hear the fan a bit more, also depending on how you're using it. When you close it, there's a rear vent hole on the back side that's a little bit blocked, so it's going to run the fan a little bit more. Both of them will run the fan more when they're plugged in, because they're going to run at higher clock speeds. The Asus, oh my god, it's like nearly silent. It is hard to get it to actually make much fan noise, unless you're doing like playing some 3D game, something like that. Quietest darn thing I've ever used. Now, another thing that sets these guys apart is the dual display nature of the Asus. Yes, you have a back display, you have a front display. You can actually use them both at the same time. So for those of you who want to do presentations, or maybe you have this idea that you can show a movie to your kids on the back screen while you're actually trying to get work done on the front screen, you can do that. Obviously, one screen on the Sony, that's not an option. Another thing to keep in mind is I know some of you are a little bit wigged out about the slider mechanism on the Sony. Now, it's really well built, fairly well shielded here, but yes, there are moving parts, no matter how well it's put together, and you can see some ribbon cables in there. Now, you and I know enough not to go in there and yank on those, don't you? But if you have small children, adventurous cats, other mischievous types, this may be a matter of concern to you. Obviously, with the Asus, you just have a standard, normal notebook design here. This just nice, big old hinge here, that's all there is to it. Opens, closes, just like a notebook, nothing tricky going on. There that is. Now, how about ergonomics as tablets? This, to a certain extent, may be a matter of personal preference. One nice thing about the Sony is it has this matte finish, so it's pretty easy to grip, it's not slippery, and on the edges we have the little canting in and tapering, so it kind of gives you some place to grab, so that feels nice. However, the weight balance is interesting. This feels heavier to me than the Asus does, even though they really are close to identical, 1 ounce apart, that's all there is to it. If you can, feel them both in the store, that's all I can tell you. But this one clearly has nice grab holds, and again, this matte finish right here, nice. That said, the Asus with its gentle taper gets a little bit thinner here, and the rounded corners is very comfortable to hold in the hand, and I actually have come to enjoy holding this more. The back here is nice metal casing, but it's not terribly slippery either. It's not slick plastic like Samsung tablets are, so it's grippy enough. Again, mostly a matter of taste. I would say Sony worked harder to make tablet ergonomics a priority, whereas this one is going with more of the standard laptop design. So that's our comparison Smackdown of the Asus Taichi 21 and the Sony VAIO Duo 11. Both are available now. The Asus Taichi is just starting to ship in the 11.6-inch version. Both are kind of hard to find in stores. They're pretty hot and they're pretty popular. Honestly, whichever one you go with, you're going to do well. And hopefully, given the comparison points that we've shown you, we're more clear to you now which one will work for you best. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Visit our website for the full review of both of these products. Watch our video reviews of these products on YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube channel.